So, I'm going to read from Pain Woman Takes Your Keys, which is my new book. I'm going to read two shorter pieces. What do I want to say about this? The funny thing about this book is that I wrote it. It was a really fun book to write, even though it's about chronic pain. And I wrote it while playing hooky from the book that I was supposed to be writing. So this is like which I tend to do. Like I tend to write two books at the same time. One is my hooky book and one is my serious book. So this is my hooky book. I didn't realize at the beginning that it was a book. I was just venting about being in pain, and I also didn't realize that it was about disability. So I don't look like what you would think of like a disabled woman would look like, but I am. I have rheumatoid arthritis, which is part of the reason why. If you don't see me, I'm lying down. But I'm still working. You can still reach me. I'm just prone. Sometimes I'll even be like prone in the back of a classroom or something, but that's fine. Okay, so I let myself, I tend to write really long narrative works, book-length works, and so I let myself play with a variety of forms, and some of them sort of verged towards poetry. I don't feel, I'm looking to Carol Ann for permission, but I don't want to call myself a poet because that feels big. So they went toward that way. So this is a very short piece called Welcome to the Kingdom of the Sick. When I'm ill, only the kingdom of the ill is of comfort. The image of laughing, limber-limbed bodies with shining hair is not bitter because I long for it. It is bitter because it does not have anything to teach me, and because it makes me forget the solidity of my own ground. I cannot aim for that bright country of the well anymore. It is barred to me, and as I hold it in my mind's eye, there is no room for crushing nostalgia. The taste is bitter because it is the taste denied. What I learn is that the kingdom of the ill is a vast bedrock. We appear weak and reclined, yet we cannot be invaded or defeated. Look at us. We are unbreakable in our brokenness. We cannot be cured and are therefore invincible. We've dropped down the well. We reel in a slow-motion dance, treading where others fear to tread, continuing to breathe in the post-normal existence. We are the zombies, the undead. We are the good and the bad witches, the double-sided. The kingdom of the ill is mighty and legion, and it is the borderland all bodies must pass through. And we have set up tents, encampments, and homes. We wave at you from beyond the gates. When you have arrived, you have arrived. Welcome and blessings. When you have arrived, you have arrived. Welcome and blessings. When you have arrived, you have arrived. Welcome and blessings. When you are aching, think of the vastness of the kingdom of the sick. Think of all of us here, feeling the most common feeling of the body in unfamiliar territory. The body feeling its own existence. The body uneasy, conscious, mindful, aware, dis-ease. Feeling a roughness that polishes a moment, not necessarily to grant an easy enlightenment, not at all. Do not tell those around and outside that you are grateful for your illness, for they do not hear it right. They will think that illness is a secret boon that delivers a great intensity, a sheen that adds to the experience of health, and one that somehow delivers them back into the kingdom of the well. But that is not what you mean. What you mean is, there is the secret door we all must enter, and I am entering it, and it is painted in luminescent colors that I am drawn to describe but cannot. What you might mean is, I am less afraid to die because I am dying. What you might mean is, I see we are all dying in slow motion like flowers and without any diminution in intensity. And that is different from what I expected to feel. I sit up in a shutter, my back lodged against the metal frame of a gate opening into the kingdom of the sick. I can still pass and carry my shape in the land of the well, though my dimensions are collapsing. Only the legion in the land of the ill offers comfort and beckons with the depth of this understanding. The ill are real, fully alive, such a vast and churning army, never ceasing. This is what I mean. They are permanent. The ocean of the sick, with fevered eyes and bedrock, has always been a stripe on the horizon, flashing pink and bright. What I mean to say is this: a fevered look is not an unintelligent look, maybe not even a pleading look. It could be true that the kingdom of the sick does not even reach out its fingers to you to request and plead for your health. It could be that the kingdom of the sick wants nothing from you because it contains you, because it is your Alpha and your Omega, because it is your mother. We are your living sunset, but we don't want to scare you with the sunset, which is your mother. We are real, and only illness reveals the true bedrock of illness. It is not imaginary. This land is the most reliable and most vast of the human experience. I would make statues of the sick and dying, not to sob at the waste of sickness or death, but at its normalcy, at the way the fluids flow out from these temporary containers. Illness is not a departure from the itinerary, not a battle, not failure. It is the noble, permanent outbreath, the quotation mark to close out the sentence. All right. My mom is like, when is your happy book coming? I'm like, this is my happy book. And she was like, it was the saddest one. So, I don't know what to say about that. Okay, this one is more, that one was odd, and this one is more like narrative. So it's more like your, an essay that you might recognize as an essay. This is about my long-distance crush on a Canadian doctor. And it's called Inside the Nautilus. And there's an epigraph by Rumi, and it goes, "The body itself is a screen to shield and partially reveal the light that's blazing inside your presence." Measure a dream. Map the far-flung geography of a night's restless searching. Compare the longing or love of today with the homesickness you felt a year ago. The answers are poems that pool and slip between my fingers. Pain is the body's nightmare. The body pulls back the edges of her mouth and the brain fogs. The hands wave in vague circles, point to problem areas, and the eyes search the ceiling, the floor. When words fail, we turn to numbers. A doctor hands me a piece of paper with charts and diagrams. The paper asks me to repeat all the information I think I know: name, date of birth, address, diagnosis. Like syllables repeated so often, they unspool into nonsense. The data to denote self becomes unhinged from its referent. The blanks on these forms fog my sense of self. Who is this throbbing creature? I am disembodied and flat, like the naked, hairless outline of the cartoon man on the form, depicted standing or lying from the front and then flipped to his back like a pancake. I'm instructed to circle the places on his body that correspond to my hurt. The man has blank circles for pupils, and he seems compliant and resigned to his fate, yet he is muscled and perfectly symmetrical. I must do well on this form because it is my only chance to let the pain speak. I press my lips together, looking back and forth between the form and an internal space, listening for pain's tracks. Was it worse a week ago? How would I rate my overall health compared to yesterday, last week, last month? How would you rate your overall health compared to a month ago at this time? Would it be a 3 on a scale of 1 to 10, or slightly more? Does your existence rank a 7? No matter what I choose, the body shifts, rankles, resigns itself to a grade that does not fit its effort, its hope, its depression, its fever dream, or its beauty. Yet doctors must ask, because qualitative data must tether to a baseline so that a treatment plan can be created and so that progress or decline may be noted. Forms for charting pain include the visual analog scale, the neuropathic pain scale, the numeric rating scale, the brief pain inventory, the face pain scale, or the verbal descriptor scale. A study by Dr. Sayin comparing these methods revealed that most patients felt that their pain was not measured accurately by any of these scales. I've rated my pain on a scale of 1 to 10 more times than I can count. I've circled and compared and then handed over the clipboard with hopelessness, knowing I'm underrating and not adequately expressing the pain. I know that women tend to underreport pain, as do rheumatoid patients. But I've not been in another body. I only know that this pain could be worse. On a 1 to 5 scale, I don't allow myself to go above a 3 unless it's a true emergency. I save 9 for feelings of childbirth and I guess being drawn and quartered. So 8 must be the limit before losing consciousness. My doctors tally up the results, enter the numbers in a file, and the form disappears, another page in my body of work. After 5 years of filling out these forms and a few hours of research, I came across something called the McGill Pain Scale. I scanned the instructions and began to consider the first table, which asked, "What does your pain feel like?" Have I ever been personally addressed by a form? Here at last I was a you, a being, as well as a named body. And feel. One's heart might catch in one's throat at that very word, capacious and wide, capturing the squishy acknowledgement that this was a demanding act of translation. The table before me offered a transfixing list of words in categories that only a person in pain would know. The category brightness asked me to choose amongst the ranked options of itchy, tingly, smarting, and stinging. I chose itchy, and it was accurate. Pain has a kind of brightness when it seems to float to the surface and almost want to rise above my skin. And it has a dullness when it seems to sink deep toward my bones. We don't give pain this nuance and credit, tending to portray it as bricks of solid sensation. But it has its own palette. I began to move down the rows, considering and composing my poem. Another category seemed to rank the pain as its pulse beat against one's body, like music, with options including flickering and pounding. Other questions tracked pain's spatial location and its heat. The category punishment listed these adjectives as choices: punishing, grueling, cruel, vicious, and killing. As frightening as these words might seem, I read this list and felt the muscles around my sternum loosen in relief. The syllables in their order named a voiceless void, transforming suffering into a hallway within a building of human culture. I suspected that even filling out this form created a measurable clinical benefit in my physical mental body, as if hope of a common language itself might ease this body's struggle against itself. I followed the directions, choosing adjectives only in categories I felt in that moment, and skipping categories that were not true in that slice of time. I received this string of adjectives: throbbing, flashing, drilling, sharp, crushing, pulling, hot, itchy, sore, tiring, troublesome, penetrating, squeezing, and nagging. Each adjective had a point value, so I added them up and received a number, 34. I began to love this poet healer McGill. I savored the form with a quiet outpouring of affection one reserves for sensitive thinkers and researchers whose work plumbs the core of human experience. Yet, as with any poem, there was so much white space in the margins. I ached for this unknown doctor who I imagine must have received a grievous injury or borne an insidious disease, because there was no other way he could know these secret things. I wanted to make a needlepoint for McGill, or maybe raisin bread. I moved to the section, how does your pain change over time? I answered the question, how it is right now, discomforting, how it is at its worst and least, excruciating and mild. I ranked my worst rheumatoid pain at 5, and the worst toothache or a stomach ache at a 4. I followed the instructions and got a total of 16. The brilliance of this form was that it asked for a long-term perspective. All the others seemed to only care about how I was doing right at that moment. After adding the 3 sections, I received a combined McKill of 50 out of 78. It was mine, this pain. My pain was strong. I have sometimes seen my pain as a foreign force that has bested me, laid me low, and never as though I were a container holding this 50, balancing this throbbing crystal vase of pain on my head and ably continuing. I turned to Wikipedia to learn that there was no McGill to fall in love with, or rather, that the scale was called McGill because it was created at McGill University in Canada. It was created by Ronald Melzack and W.S. Torgenson, first published in 1975, building on Melzack's research and time spent listening to people in pain. While in school for his doctorate, Melzack began to work with amputee patients who had phantom limb syndrome, a particular pain that agonized and persisted despite having little external expression in the tissue. He began collecting pain words from his patients, and later he put them into groups that seemed to belong together. He sought out more people in pain and listened. His form came from the mouths of people in pain as they searched for words to describe their experience. The form, in addition to being accurate and poetic, is scientifically reliable and reproducible. It's been translated into 50 languages and found to be statistically valid and meaningful across cultures. Around the world, people tend to use the same words to describe pain. This is my dream of a common language. I Googled, I love Ron Melzack, as though I were scrawling the sentence on a folder in a high school journal. It turned out that no one on the internet has written that phrase. I was sad again that Melzack's form had never found its way to me via a doctor. I cast backward and outward, imagining a world and a country where doctors would have time or inclination to consider this form's data. I wanted to see Dr. Melzak's face, so I searched for pictures. I studied his image, an older balding man with a long face and nice, thoughtful smile. His shoulders sloped as if he were tall and used to stooping. I found a video from McGill University. Ah, McGill. Upon learning that he was still alive, I briefly considered a road trip, but decided it would be creepy to drive to Canada to say thank you to a scholar of pain. In the video, he sat in his office describing his research. The orderly spiral of a bisected nautilus shell hung in a frame on the wall behind him. That proportioned geometry from nature expressing the golden mean and the promise of logical construction to a creature's development. The nautilus reminded me of Melzak's form, its compartments providing safety and structure. In the video, Melzak described his early research with dogs in pain, which led him to the idea that a person's prior experience would shape how they interpreted pain. His theory, that pain was a complex constellation involving the brain, the nerves, and the emotions, flew in the face of centuries of simple theories of pain, beginning with Descartes' idea that pain was a message that traveled up a nerve to the brain. The interview on the video asked, "Why pain?" Melzak smiled shyly and described his credo for research. Pick a tough problem. Don't pick an easy one. The joy of research is in the challenge of the problem. Inspired by his continuing work with phantom limb pain, in the early 1990s he developed the neural matrix theory, which describes a map of one's body contained in one's mind. He let another shy smile escape. I have the neural matrix theory. What I don't have is a model of the brain that would fit it. So what I'm developing now is a new way of looking at the brain. In his modest office, in front of a painted white cinder block wall with the careful, slow record of a nautilus's work behind him, he was asked how it felt to be on the trail of something so huge and to have accomplished so much. "It's very gratifying," he said. "It's wonderful, and it makes me want to continue because the job isn't all done." During a day in which I lay on the couch and pain occluded my thinking, I lingered in the world of YouTube and fell into a 2-hour video about the latest science of pain, all research building on Melzak's foundational work. I learned about nerve sheaths and allodynia, hyperalgesia, neuropathy, and tissue damage. The science provided a massive comfort for one female neuromatrix and physical body, trying to find meaning and order, enfolding me like the segments of a shell. The researcher on the video turned from his PowerPoint slides and said to his students in the lecture hall, "As far as I'm concerned, if there is no emotional response, there's no pain. In other words, pain is upsetting." He added, "Pain is not a stimulus. Pain is an emotional experience." Over and over, doctors have regarded my body to look for the nonverbal, the non-emotional, checking my hands and feet to see minimal deformity. They have called me lucky because the body's outward signals, as mute as a nautilus's shell's smooth surface, cannot speak about the sharp and segmented poetry within. Thank you. Thank you. So we've been taking questions. If you have any questions, comments, if not, we'll go over and chat over there. Any? Okay, cool, good. We have a bookstore that sells a bunch of different books from all of our faculty, as well as some other books that we recommend. So you can head over there, and then I'll be hanging out in St. Michael's C if you want to sign, and we just, in general, will hang out and chat. Okay, thank you all very much.